this country, and for his presidency. But towards the end of the conversation, King says to Johnson, "Now, Mr. President, with all due respect, we would like to vote." Because you see, in places like Selma, Alabama, where the majority of their citizens are black, there's not a single black voter on the rolls. And these civil rights are wonderful, but what do they mean if we cannot freely and fairly choose those who will represent us in these positions of power? Mr. President, please do what you can. And Johnson responds, "Gentlemen, you're right, and I'd love to help out, but I used everything I had to get civil rights accomplished. I simply do not have the power. I'm sorry." As King and Young leave, Young turns to King and says, "Well, what do we do now?" And King responds, "We go out there and we get this guy's power." And everyday Americans, including people in this community, they took to the courthouse, to the state house steps. They lit up the switchboard at the Capitol. They wrote the president. They demanded that this country live up to its ideals and fulfill its foundational promise. Everyone trying in every way that they could to break through until March 7th, 1965, a young 24-year-old John Lewis leads this march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, with 600 marchers just asking, mind you, for the right to vote. They're beaten within an inch of their lives, and thankfully the press is there, not the enemy of the people, but the best defender of this democracy, if you ask me. And around the world. And it so shocks the conscience of America that within 8 days, lightning speed in DC, Johnson's able to convene a joint session of the House and the Senate, 15th of March, 1965. And I'm paraphrasing him here, but he says something to the effect of, as it was at Lexington and Concord, as it was 100 years later at that courthouse in Appomattox, and he could have easily added, as it was on the speeches in Normandy in June of '44, everyday Americans willingly laid down their lives for this country to become the democracy, the true representative of the people that we've always promised it would be. And ladies and gentlemen of the House and the Senate, you have the power to get this done. And by the summer of '65, Johnson signs the Voting Rights Act of 1965 into law, creating the first true, real democracy, for my money at least, in American history. It was done through the power of people. So when you go home later and your husband or wife or child or parent says, "Well, that was nice, I'm sure it felt good to be with other people, but does that make a difference?" I think this is the only thing that does make a difference in this country. And you do not want that child or grandchild or their children or grandchildren way down the road to look back on us, the people of 2025, when all of this was going on, and wonder, what did my grandparents, what did my great-grandparents do at this moment of truth, at this real trial and test for this country? For 249 years, we have pulled this off. As Johnson said, that generation, 1776, they got it done. In 1865, more than 300,000 young men gave their lives to end the institution of slavery, and they did. Those who landed on the beaches in Normandy, 9,389 white crosses are on those beaches today. Some of them are people from the Panhandle who willingly fought off fascism half the world away to protect this democracy here at home. Who deny their legacy, their purpose, their sacrifice, their struggle? We've inherited all of it. And it comes down to us at this moment. So, no pressure, Amarillo. But history looks to us. And so as we listen to one another right now, that's what this town hall is about. There are two microphones. I have one. Cynthia Cano back there has one. We're going to get as many people into the conversation. And we are looking for not just people who agree with me or who agree with you. We want to get all voices in. It will have to be the biggest, the broadest coalition possible, a united front in this country to overcome the greatest challenges we have ever faced. And I truly believe that by bringing people together, by listening to one another, by seeing each other not as Republicans or Democrats, but as Texans, as Americans, as human beings, we're going to come through this trial. We're going to win this country back. She's right back here. And as you raise your hand, she'll bring that microphone to you. We'll get as many voices, as many people into the conversation as we can. And as she's doing that, let me give two big shout outs. One is to Carmen Seberg, who I just saw, who's right here, who invited us to and I don't know, Cynthia, if Carol McDaniel's here, but Carol McDaniel, she's right here. Carol McDaniel is very kind to be here. Welcome to Austin Middle School. And so I'm very grateful that you're here, and Mary is here, who's been to almost every one of our town halls. At that Austin Middle School event in 2017, Mary stood up, and I don't want to give her age away, but a little bit older than me, and said, as long as I've been alive, I've never registered to vote because I didn't think there was a reason to. Because of the campaigns that were running, the people we're bringing together, I'm going to get registered, and I don't think she has missed an election since. So Mary, if you're here, thank you as well. All right,
Raj from Lubbock. I want to congratulate everybody else that's here from Lubbock. You mentioned, does Texas want you to run for Senate? And I think if there's a time, the time is now for a push for the
Thank you for that. At some point, there will be a time for Texas to choose their nominees and their candidates. Right now, we've got to make this more than about a person or a party. It really has to be about all of us. Yesterday, I was kind of, I don't feel I'll ever get this way. I was kind of moping around the house. And I was like, Amy, we're doing these town halls, running this big voter registration program under Athena's guidance, powered by people. Am I doing enough? Is this the right thing for me to be doing? And Amy said, hey, Beto, you got to remember, this is not about you and how you feel and what you are or not going to do. This is about the country. Whatever you can do right now to help the country, you better get after it and do it. That's what we're going to be doing today. But thank you for the vote.
I've got sort of a long question. They're not paying attention to the Supreme Court. They're not paying attention to federal judges. They're not paying attention to anybody. So I know that we can do something when the next election happens. But what can we do right now?
Yeah. I mentioned, 1965. That's the year that John Lewis crossed that bridge. Not an election year. And in fact, most of those who were marching with him literally could not register to vote. First, they'd ask how many jelly beans are in the jar. Then you have to recite the Alabama state constitution. Then you got to pass the literacy test. So no one who was black was voting. No one who was on that bridge almost was able to vote. So not waiting for an election year, like we're not going to wait until 2026 or 2028. People took matters into their own hands. And it's not just ancient history 60 years ago. Who remembers during the first Trump administration, a policy known as family separation?
Yeah.
And a refresher for those who didn't raise their hands. Let's say you're leaving Venezuela for the fear of your child being raped or killed or abducted, or Honduras or El Salvador or any other country that's failing right now. Doing what, frankly, if we're honest with ourselves, any one of us would do. I've got 3 kids. I would do anything and everything if it meant saving their lives, including what these moms were doing, walking 2,000 miles, the length of the Western Hemisphere, to come to a country that's comprised of refugees and salvation seekers and immigrants from the world over. And just as they get here, they survived every manner of threat and depredation, riding atop, not inside of a train known as the Beast, La Bestia, for part of the journey. Just when they get here, because of that first administration and zero tolerance family separation, that young child, for whom that mother has been willing to sacrifice her life, is literally torn from her arms. Mom is deported back to Venezuela. Child is put in foster care here in the United States of America. Some of those mothers and children have yet to be reunited more than 7 years later. We knew it was wrong. We knew it was an injustice. While we can also acknowledge that the border was broken, the immigration system was an absolute mess, we needed to fix this is not the way to get that done. We didn't wait for an election. We didn't wait to cast ballots. We stepped up and stood up to be counted all across the country, including in small town in El Paso County, about a 7.5-hour drive from where we sit right now, called Tornillo, Texas. In Tornillo, private contractors had set up a tent city that was housing these kids who'd been removed from their parents' custody. We convened, we put the word out on Father's Day, 2018. More than 1,000 people from across Texas and across the country convened in Tornillo to bear witness, to testify to their fellow Americans just what was being done in their name, and to raise their voices. So those kids inside those tents knew that we knew we were there. We weren't going to stop working until we could free them and reunite them. That was on the 18th of June, 2018. On the 20th of June, that same year, the president rescinded that family separation policy. He could not withstand the force of public sentiment that Lincoln talked about being the most powerful thing in the country. So we've had hands-off rallies, we've had town halls in Amarillo, we've had marches, we've had protests. You can be forgiven. You're a little discouraged that none of this has broken through yet. But just remember, prior to March 7th, 1965, nothing broke through to push Johnson to use his power to pass voting rights. Prior to June 18th, 2018, nothing broke through to stop this inhumane, unjust policy of family separation until it did. So my answer to you is we cannot grow discouraged. We do not have that luxury. We have to keep trying. We have to keep showing up. We have to keep joining with our friends, our family, our neighbors, complete strangers who say, hey, Beto, this weekend we're getting together on the corner of Mesa and Southern Park in El Paso. We're going to protest. Who the hell knows whether it's going to work? I'm going to show up for that. If we keep doing this, ultimately, we are going to overcome. And listen, at this moment of truth, we cannot be found wanting. So let's commit that we'll do everything within our power to make sure that we can
I'll try to be brief here. It feels like to me that the DNC and the Democrats have been dropping the ball for 40 years as far as getting the word out there. It started with Rush Limbaugh. Limbaugh brainwashed a whole bunch of people into believing. We've known all along we're right. We are right. We know it. We don't have to be told that we're right. You pointed out how we're right several ways, but we haven't been doing the stuff. Where is our Rush Limbaugh? Where is our Project 2025? Where is our Elon Musk has destroyed Twitter. He turned it into a right-wing cesspool. I mean, it's filled with trash mouth jerks that flip people off and act like just total idiots. We have got to come up with that stuff. Where is our social media? Right now, they're trying to destroy PBS and NPR. We'll have no voice there. We have no voice. YouTube. You cannot post the word MAGA on YouTube, or their algorithm will block it. No one will see it. Every social media site right now, I can't think of the guy's name, but he's trying to buy TikTok. He's a big right-wing donor. Our voices, yeah, Beto, I love you. You are a great guy. You come out, you have such energy. And we're not reaching the big voice. How are we gonna catch up after 40 years of Limbaugh and Rupert Murdoch and all of the garbage that's put us in this hole where Republicans can deny all of their garbage? They can believe every piece of garbage that pops into Trump's brain. And yet, sorry, I'm nervous. We gotta do something, man. Yeah.
To repeat some of what you all shared with me in preparation for this visit. Under those who are in power today, nationally and in Texas, we're going to take over time $10 billion of your taxes away from your public schools and send them to private school families to use as vouchers, not necessarily in the counties surrounding ours, but in Dallas, in Houston, and San Antonio. And we do not begrudge those kids and those families their choice to go to private school. We just don't want it to come at the expense of ours. Amarillo is shutting 3 public schools down right now. And let me tell you, you find me a harder working public servant than a public school educator who's working 2 or 3 jobs. He's not afraid to work even in life. For these kids to unlock a lifelong love of learning within them so that they can reach their potential. And now we're telling her and every one of her colleagues, you're just not important to us. And though you're among the lowest paid educators in America, in the developed world, we're going to take whatever meager resources you have and send them somewhere else. There's 154 counties in Texas out of the 254 that do not have a private school to which you can send your kid. If you can afford the delta between what the voucher pays and what the private tuition requires. When it comes to public health, how are y'all liking measles right now?
Oh my God.
It had been 20 years, 2 decades, since a child in America had succumbed to that virus. Just this year, in just this part of this state in this country, 2 kids have lost their lives. And the Secretary of Health and Human Services says, just take some more vitamin A or toughen up. You're going to get through this. You'll be just fine. You mentioned the food bank and 13 truckloads of nutrition that were turned back from those in need. Those who've lived their lives in this community, done their best, and each of us can agree, but for the grace of God, there we would be, waiting for that nutrition and those calories to feed ourselves and our kids. To this gentleman's point, where the hell are the Democrats, except for present company exclusive? Where are the Democrats, and where have they been? When I call friends in Dalhart, Texas, they say, Beto, 3 big issues here. Number 1, immigration, and not in a negative sense. We're a farming and agricultural community. We need folks who will travel those 2,000 miles and do a job that they were born and raised. Where are you guys? You're available. Union jobs are important to us. Who are fighting for unions right now in Dalhart? And I mentioned public schools and private schools. The largest employer in Dalhart, Texas, is the public school system right now. When we defund those schools and turn them into vouchers at your expense, you're going to be underwriting it. What's going to happen? We're going to dry up and die on the vine. But here's the thing. Where in the hell is the Democratic Party? You'll find them in Houston and in Austin and in San Antonio, and God bless them there. We can't turn our backs on those communities either. But if we don't stand up and fight for people who are under attack in Amarillo and Dalhart and the High Plains, we cannot wonder why they didn't vote for us at the top of the ticket or in a presidential year. It's justice of the peace, it's county commissioners, it's city council, it's school board trustees, it's every position of the community who have to be fighting on every single front. And we have to have each other's backs. So when folks ask me, so you're holding these town halls all over Texas, why are you holding them in Wichita Falls and Mansfield and Fort Bend and Denton and Amarillo? It's because my party, for whatever reason, has refused to show up. And when our party doesn't show up, the Republicans don't have to either. That's why they're not holding town halls. I mean, they have no competition on the ballot. So, if you're out there, here with us today, willing to run for office, willing to put your name on the line, willing to get after it, knock on doors, to meet your neighbors, and folks you will never, ever forget after the conversations you hold together, then we want to support you. We have a group that I mentioned called Powered by People, volunteers all over the state, including Carmen and others right here in Potter and Randall counties. We'll help register voters for you. We'll stay in touch with those voters. We'll help turn them out in November to make sure that you have a fighting chance. And then lastly, man, you have to admit, the Republicans have been incredible at patiently and persistently building political power over the long term. Democrats' fortunes rise and fall with celebrity candidates and the top of the ticket, and we don't win, our hearts get broken, we go home and we pout. In election years and non-election years, at every place on the ballot, patiently and persistently registering voters, showing up in these communities day after day, not just when our name's on the ballot, not just when we're a candidate. That's how we're going to build this power over time. So 2 things I'm asking for. Meet the moment, show up, protest, stand up, and be counted. That's what we're doing here today, and we will continue to do until we change this country. And then second, we got to be in this for the long term. We may or may not win elections in these counties in 2026. We may not in 2028, but if we get started now, if we don't give up, if we don't lose that hope, we keep the faith and we keep the fight, sooner or later, political power will return to those who truly want to serve the people of this community. Thank you for what you have to say.
Hi, my name is Cassandra Harris, and I teach at Tascosa High School, been there for 25 years. Do not confuse.
Not Confederate.
No,
rebels.
you're not.
Other people.
Do not confuse the
Star Wars
spells.
rebels.
You're not. So I was going to ask you just your take on education, as you just said, but I'm here today with 3 teachers. My husband's a former teacher. There's lots of teachers in here. We're attacked. We are feeling attacked at the pocketbook because Abbott's withholding money right now. We're going to pay them or not, basic allotment, all of that at the federal level. So we're attacked financially, but we're also being attacked when teachers who are here, again, we're probably here thinking about our students. We're so afraid to say anything, to do anything. Are we going to get in trouble? Are they going to say something about us, about what we read, about what we say, about if we have a student with pronouns and we use those pronouns? Are we going to get in trouble for that? I have so many pictures of students, sorry, I'm so sad, and videos of students on my phone who were trans or gay, and they were not supported by their family, and they chose to take their own life. This is the real, we love what we do, but this is the reality. And people just think we're out here trying to indoctrinate people, and we're just trying to get kids to love each other and be good humans. And this is
Thank you. Because of what you just said, whenever I'm out there and I meet a young person who's graduating college or graduating grad school, and and it's invariably ask them what they're going to do next, they tell me that they want to teach. One, I'm so shocked and surprised, and I just get down on my knees and I say, thank you so much. We need you, and I cannot believe that you want to do this, knowing what you're going to face in that classroom, both the profound need from those students who are going to rely on you, in many cases because they don't have the luxury of relying on their parents. They may not have parents they're going to go home to at the end of the day. You become their parent because this state, years after 19 kids and 2 beautiful teachers were gunned down in Uvalde, and those children only identified by the shoes they were wearing, because we somehow think it's okay that an 18-year-old can buy a couple of AR-15s and unlimited rounds of ammunition and leave those kids prey to being destroyed by a weapon of war that's designed to take down enemy soldiers on a battlefield. And instead it's taking them down. We lead the nation today in school shootings. Not a single thing has changed in our laws to make another Uvalde any less than for any other kid. I've got 3 kids in the public schools in El Paso, Texas. Not only is it active teachers working 2 or 3 jobs, it's retired teachers who went 20 years without a cost of living adjustment after they gave the best years of their lives to this state and our kids. What do you think is going on? When you go into the country, because you want to serve this country, you want to serve this community, because you know that this is these kids' best ticket to do something fantastic and great in their lives. Not only is it the vouchers that you talked about, President Trump, in his attacks on the Department of Education, which may not exist before too long, wants to do away with IDEA funding for those kids with intellectual and physical disabilities that are a little bit tougher to teach and need a little bit more resources if we're going to connect with them. Or how about those kids in Title I schools where Title I is now being threatened with being absolutely decimated? I think 73% of the schools in the state of Texas are Title I schools. So you take the money out with vouchers, you choke off the money from the federal level. Who's going to pay the difference? It's you. It's your property tax bill will continue to climb and decline and decline. And when your city council is trying to pay those police officers, those firefighters, and those first responders a little bit more because they deserve a lot more, they're not going to be able to do it because it's going to be crowded out by what your ISP is requiring you to pay just to keep the doors open. And 3 schools that we know of so far and more coming are going to be closing their doors soon in Amarillo ISD. And so the question you ask, I think, implied is, what are we going to do about it? To be clear, we lost the voucher fight. That one is in the rearview mirror. Greg Abbott was literally able to take tens of millions of dollars from billionaire donors who told him explicitly, I want to shut down public ed and benefit Christian schools because of my vision for Christian nationalism in the state of Texas. He willingly took the money, used it to defeat pro-public school Republicans, not Democrats, in primaries across the state. It is not the expression of the will of the people of Texas. It's the expression of more than $16 million used to purchase an outcome right now. That gives me some hope that when we have state representative and state senate elections in 2026 and in 2028, we're going to organize around and behind those candidates who are going to fight to restore funding to these public schools and restore funding. To be clear, restoring funding is not enough. To get back to status quo ante, that's not what we're about. We have to make sure that we become the best funded, the highest paid teachers, the best outcomes for our kids. Think about this last thing on this question. Think about some of the best moments in American history. I mentioned, Appomattox, Lexington, Concord, Normandy. Think about President Kennedy and how he defined us as Americans. It was all through aspiration. We're going to defeat the Soviet Empire and tyranny and totalitarianism. We will bear any burden, he told us. We'll pay any price. Man, that is just thrilling. We're going to land a man on the moon before the end of this decade. And now think about this current administration. It's not about getting to the moon. It's not defeating evil tyrannies. In fact, we've switched sides in a war in Europe from the democracy to tyranny in real time. It is about punching down on trans kids, among the most vulnerable in our communities, with the highest suicide rates of any kid right now. Tough to talk about, but important to say if we're going to stop it. It's about going after immigrants. It's about suspending due process. What happened to this big, bold, beautiful, aspirational country that wanted to and did great things? It all begins in the classroom with all of us having your back, and we do. Thank you for being here today.
I'm not sure if you can hear me very well. Laryngitis. I'm Michelle. I actually live in Austin, but I came here to see you today with my 2 beautiful daughters. I understand your big picture view, right? But I think we all feel a sense of urgency on what we're seeing every single day when we wake up. And we're being battered every day, all day long, with horrible things that are happening around us. And in the short term, I think that's where a lot of us are concerned for our safety, how do we protect ourselves and our families. If crazy things are happening, like a woman getting arrested in New Jersey the day before yesterday and having a baby ripped from her arms, literally, a group of people were trying to protect her. What do we do about those things? How do we take action now today? I love the big picture.
Yeah.
I need to know about today.
Yeah.
Other thing is, what about, you're familiar with California Boys Ranch, the nonprofit here that serves young men and women who are going through tough times. It's funded by Medicaid largely. How are we going to protect those at-risk kids when the funds that are helping them are ripped away?
Two questions. First one, what do we do right now? That's a love your history lessons, but the house is on fire. How are we gonna get this thing out? And second, these proposed and they're proposed, and that means they are coming. Cuts to Medicaid, a program that was invented right here in Texas. First signed into law in that same year, 1965, by the first Texas president. So, I talk about the importance of showing up. Well, why do Republicans not hold town hall meetings like these? They don't want to hear from you. They're hoping that what you just said will not be transmitted to others, that dots won't be connected, that people won't get the truth. This excellent question was asked earlier by the gentleman up front. Where's our Joe Rogan? Where's our Fox News? Where is our Twitter? Where is our political ecosphere where lies and malicious rumors can be repeated ad nauseum until they become held as truths by our fellow Americans? I don't have the answer to that one. Don't have the money to fund that and get that to happen. But when we show up here like we're doing today, 500 people, that's not lost on the state representative. That's not lost on the US congressman. Right now, those two people fear Greg Abbott, given what he spent in the last round of primaries, and Donald Trump, because of his hold over the Republican Party, more than they fear anything else. When we show up, as we're doing today, but it cannot just be today. It's got to be tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after. It means showing up at the school board and saying, I don't want you to shut down these 3 schools. And also, let me just repeat something I heard from Beto today. IDEA funding is going to be canceled. Title I funding is going to be canceled. My freaking property taxes are going to go through the roof because of this. And I want everyone who's watching this and listening right now to hear that. That's going to break through. Does it break through to 3 people, to 30 people, 300? I don't know. But we keep doing this. Remember that great speech by Robert Kennedy, the good one, senior? He talks about these ripples of hope. It's this stuff, and this is what I'm trying to get at, and I wish I were more articulate. What we are doing today is so profoundly important and powerful. It is a ripple of hope. You came from Austin. Everyone here just heard that. Man, she is dedicated. She is serious. She really means it. It gives other people who are here or who are watching on the live stream some hope. And what Kennedy goes on to say is that as each of us do our part, these small, seemingly insignificant acts, as ripple meets ripple to ripple, it begins to form a current. And that current grows bigger and bigger until it is so mighty that it can break down any wall of oppression. And so there is no silver bullet. We do not have a Joe Rogan. Just like those who believe in civil rights and voting rights, they didn't have all the levers of power that the other side did. I mean, I wonder if someone at one of those town halls says, they've got the Klan. Where is our group of thugs who will kill, intimidate, brutalize people? Where are our county sheriffs who will arrest people who are just trying to rescue? But we didn't have that on our side. But we had people who, through their actions and the courage of their convictions, caused those ripples, culminating in that march in '65. It wasn't John Lewis. It was every person who came before him. And so listen, I know this answer, even as I give it to you, it's just deeply unsatisfying. Because it just is. but it is the truth. It's the only way we're going to get there. It's not going to be a candidate. It's not going to be a political party. It's going to be the people. And I'm with you. I'm deeply frustrated that how many months into this, 4+ months into this administration, I thought there would be an uprising. You just ignored it. A federal court order. That's a Constitution. You don't do everything. You're hurting. You're killing people in this country and around the world. Where are the people? But you know what? If you pay attention, like in this room today, right now, folks are starting to show up. And it's not just in gatherings like these. You look at school board and municipal and city elections that were just held a little bit earlier this month. The authoritarian forces, including in places like Texas and very rural conservative communities, lost across the board. There is an expression of the American character, and that aspirational value that I talked about is beginning to shine through. Do not sleep on it. Do not give up on it. Do not lose that hope. On Medicaid, just briefly, 25% of the rural hospitals, including those that surround Concord and Hamilton County, 25% of them in the state of Texas are at risk of shutting down. We have already lost more rural hospitals than any other state in the union. And I don't have to tell those of you who come in from rural communities today what that means. Like the school district, the hospital very often is the largest employer. It is a key factor in quality of life for that community. If you're trying to recruit the next amazing young school teacher to your rural community, and you have to tell her that the hospital just shut down and she has to drive 120 miles should she or her child seek any care, who the hell is going to move to that community? And even more important, you witness this in your hometowns. How do you get your 19 or 20-year-old to make the choice to stay there? No, they're going to go somewhere else. Maybe it's Amarillo, maybe it's Austin, maybe it's Chicago or New York. This will spell the death of rural Texas and rural America. Now, I mentioned Texas came up with this stuff in the first place, and inexplicably, Texas remains one of the last states not to expand Medicaid, leaving us the least insured people in America, the hardest to see a doctor, to get medication, to take your kid to somebody when they're sick. How are we going to change that? Yes, 2026 is important. Yes, 2028 is important. But go to the Amarillo City Council, speak up at the call to the public section where you get your 2 or 3 minutes. Tell folks what this means for this community. Make sure that that truth is transmitted. I don't know if it's going to be up to the measure of Joe Rogan or these other influencers, but by and large, one act after another, we're going to start to reach people, and that is going to build. So we got to do that on Medicaid, on school funding, on every other issue that comes up. Thank you for answering the question. And thank you for coming.
In the future, what I would like to do is the homeless people, you know how they don't have enough money or hardly any money to afford anything. So what I would like to do in the future is give them some money or give them a good job.
Penelope, how old are you? 7-year-old Penelope? Let's give it up. If you didn't hear her, Penelope said, you know, those who are homeless, who don't have enough money, who don't have a stable roof over their heads or a consistent place to lay down day after day, how can we help them out? Can we give them some money? Can we help them out? Can we make sure that they're okay? We mentioned earlier, Penelope, but for the grace of God, go any single one of us. You know, we may ourselves be homeless. You know, one bad turn of luck for us. You know, we get fired from our job or our employer because for some reason we thought that we could tear up our way to a better economy, but it just shuts down these manufacturing jobs. You have a hard time selling the pecans or the cotton or the other things that we grow and make in America, in the panhandle, and people are out of work. and they can no longer meet the note on the mortgage, and they're out of their house. They can no longer afford the bill at the grocery store, and they're in line at that food bank. How do we make sure that we help them out? How do we see ourselves in those who are vulnerable and suffering and in need right now? And your question, I think, contained the answer in it. The wealthiest, the most powerful country that the world has ever known in the whole of human history certainly has the resources to help those who are less well off right now. The smallest number of Americans that we've ever seen in the history of our country. Somehow fairly, right? Equitably. Don't groan, we can do this. We've got to make sure that everyone is paying their fair share in to what makes America great in the first place. And from that we help those who need a hand up, right? We don't want to give anybody just a handout like, hey, you just do whatever you want to do. The money's going to continue to flow. But hey, I understand you're down on your luck right now. That could happen to me as well. I want to make sure that you have a roof over your head. I want to make sure you can take a shower and you have some nice clothes before you go to that job interview. I want to make sure you have some food in your belly when you're trying to learn at school the next day. We can get that done. It's a little bit harder today for the reasons that I've described under this administration. But Penelope, just the way that all of us in this room heard you right now, we're going to ask everybody else to make sure that they talk to their family members, their friends, their neighbors, their classmates, wherever they can in public, on social media, or at these public government meetings to say exactly what you did. And I bet you we're going to touch the hearts of the people here in Amarillo. And even as they cut USDA funding for these food banks, the people of Amarillo are going to step up and help one another. You think we can get that done?
Aviana, try to do this.
You got this.
Look at my daughter. She's special needs.
You know what? Take your time. Take your time, and we all want this.
And the speech therapist, but she's 12, and like she was saying, the urgency that we need right now, like if they take her education away, like she goes to Canyon, they go to school to be, they let them go 21, and they show them life skills so that she can on her own paper. I'm just afraid for her, like, if she gets stuck in a classroom where she's not being taught with these vouchers, all of these things, like, I don't know what to do, I can't. I'm a single mom, I can't homeschool her. Like, what is my option with that? Like, and I know there's many others that say to do. But
This is great.
but like, I'm a mama bear.
You're
Where do we go? How do we, she's 12, I want to, before she, or, 18. It's a problem. Does that make any sense?
Makes total sense. Was everybody able to hear that? 12-year-old daughter, special needs, wondering what's going to happen to her if we stay on this current trajectory. Will she be, warehoused in some, holding place, not taught, not given the skills and the chances that she needs, right? And then she said, I'm a mama bear, so she's going to fight for that kid, right? Make sure that child is okay. Single mom, though, doesn't have luxury homeschooling. What are the choices? I mentioned earlier IDEA. This is, again, this wonderful program that all of us, Republicans and Democrats, decided was going to be a priority for this country. We recognize there are children among us with disabilities. Your daughter, my sister, Erin O'Rourke, special needs, went through the public school system in El Paso. I love special needs educators because I witnessed them unlocked some amazing things for Erin. Not only teach her, to read, to write, to add, but taught her life skills. She lived semi-independently once she graduated from school. And once we learned that in Texas, when she graduated from high school, she was on a 20-year wait list for state-supported services for special needs kids. It's the longest wait list in America. But thank God, but for those public school teachers, I don't know what she would have. There was a time in this country where if you were special needs, right? If you had an intellectual disability or even a physical disability, we wanted you out of sight and out of mind. We sent you to institutions, we warehoused you, we just got you as far away from the rest of the public. Never even a thought to you being able to live independently or you growing into your full potential. When I mentioned earlier that the Trump administration is proposing to cut IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. That may have just sounded like an abstract piece of legislation, or the hundreds of millions of dollars that are associated with it, just more money, and maybe it's good that we're cutting that. Maybe that's the kind of waste that Elon Musk has been warning us about. When this young mother, and you can hear how difficult it was for her to talk about this, when she puts a name, and she showed me her daughter's face, which is the home screen on my iPhone, when she puts a face to that, we now understand who is going to be hurt. And the very honest truth, because if nothing else, we owe each other our candor. Is this going to be very, very tough for her? And left unchecked, that money is going to dry up. And whether your school board trustees want to make up the difference by raising your property taxes, or whether they want to make the tough decision to let services go for kids with special needs, that's up to the voters and those who are going to hold those in positions of public trust accountable. So when I say it's more than just voting or registering to vote or even showing up at this town hall today, it means going to the Canyon ISD school board meeting and showing that picture to the trustees and saying, listen, if you don't step into the breach right now with these cuts proposed by the Trump administration, my little girl is going to lose out, and she is my world, she is my everything. Talked about the mother who traveled 2,000 miles to save her girl from certain death in Venezuela. We'll meet this mama bear from Canyon, Texas, who's going to do everything within her power. We have to show her that we have her back. Are you all with me? Let's make sure not during the next election, but the next school board meeting. Does anybody know when the next Canyon school board meeting is?
It's always on a Tuesday.
It's always on a Tuesday, I heard it. Let's look that up. Cynthia, if you find it, we'll say it out loud. And if you're going to be at that school board meeting, we're going to encourage everyone else who lives in or near Canyon to show up as well and have your back. Thank you for being here today. Really appreciate it.
I'm going to get 3 more people. Here's our next question.
Great. Thank you, Cynthia.
Hi, my name is Madison Boyle, and I'm local to Canyon. An issue that is very prominent in Texas, mainly rural Texas, is the spread of misinformation on vaccines and its causation of autism, and also demonizing autism, which is making it easier to roll back civil rights protections for disabled children and disabled adults. How do you think that we should combat that spread of misinformation and get people to truly believe in science?
Going back to the history books that will be written in the future, people will just not be able to believe their eyes. How many years has it been since the Enlightenment? Like 300 plus? And then people have to ask questions like these in town hall meetings in what is supposed to be the most enlightened country on the planet. That we are debating basic truths and established facts. And it doesn't mean that we should not be skeptical. I think that's an American value and a trait that we should continue to hold dear. Of course, you should not believe everything that everyone in any position of power tells you. You should believe everything that you read or hear or find on the internet today, of course, right? And, to some degree, I can agree with those, like the Secretary of HHS who says, do your own research. Of course, do your own research. But in so doing, I hope you'll listen to the scientists and the doctors and the medical experts and the millions of pages of research that have been written to understand the causation of conditions like autism and the potential linkage to things like vaccines. It's a legitimate question. And you don't need to be forgiven for asking it. If your child is autistic, you should. But when the evidence comes back overwhelmingly that the MMR vaccine, which is going to prevent your child from getting measles and potentially dying of measles, like 2 kids did in the Panhandle so far just this year, I think that's important to know as well. And to the gentleman's earlier question, which is so good, when I was growing up, there were 3 major broadcast channels. It's ABC, NBC, and CBS. And our family was a Dan Rather fan. Sometimes my dad, we were a little bit left of center. We watched the McNeil News Hour, PBS, okay? I don't know if that's liberal or not, but we just loved our news. We read the El Paso Times in the evening, the El Paso Herald Post. You can have your own opinion, but nobody had their own facts. It was all established and understood. Find me somebody under the age of 40 in Amarillo, and no offense to Michael and others who work for the Amarillo paper, who reads the paper today, or watches broadcast television, or certainly the news on broadcast television. They're getting their information from Twitter, from TikTok, from podcasters, from Instagram. And these conspiracy theories and memes are running wild. And that's the true infection at this moment. That's what's leading people to do things that are literally harming themselves and their kids. And so the question of the hour, which is, you can tell I'm struggling, but I'm doing my best to answer it, is what do we do if we don't have control of these memes of disseminating disinformation across tens of millions of people? It's the question you asked earlier. This isn't the answer I want to give you, because it's not easy and it's not going to be quick, but it's this. It's the most powerful, profoundly human connection we can make. Person to person, face to face, eyeball to eyeball. When we connect in this way, when I learn her daughter's story, when I hear you ask about the danger to our kids, that we turn our backs on these vaccines, I am moved. And not just moved emotionally, I'm moved to act. So let us continue to do everything within our power to transmit the truth. You might have 12 followers on Twitter. Tell those 12 followers what you found out and learned today and want to share with them. Make sure that speak up on that microphone, even if you don't like to speak in public, because this is our time of truth and we cannot be found wanting. We don't want those reading the history books to say, man, 249 years into this thing, every generation somehow had pulled it off. And this generation somehow succumbed to all of these forces, as challenging as they are. So, to put a point on it, the MMR vaccine will save your child's life. It is safe. There's no established in that vaccine. We all need to share that with the next information to get that out. Thank you for asking.
Okay, the next Canyon Independent School District Board meeting is Monday, May 12th at 7 p.m.
All right, we'll see you there.
Hello, I'm Dr. Shanna James. I actually was over all of our COVID programs for 5 years.
Thank you.
I left. I was a professor and primary provider, and I left. It was supposed to be short term, but I stayed because I knew everyone else was over it. So I have some experience with this area, with misinformation, disinformation. To that point, I followed all public health across the nation, but specifically in Texas, and we probably had the most difficult time when it came to social media trying to put correct information. In 2021, we had the highest mortality rate of COVID, even though we were giving 4 vaccines in the world per capita. We were actually a worldwide destination. They were actually booking trips here to come and get their vaccines. Planes from Mexico were coming, but unfortunately it wasn't our community because of this and disinformation. So what I learned is, in this area, it's not facts, it's not stats, and it's not research. It's stories, and it's connection, just like you said. And you've talked about some of the funding cuts, but there's so much more happening in our community. I also was elected as our chair of the Continuum Care on Thursday. That's our homeless collaborative, so Penelope, I can see you.
It's to prevent Indian homelessness. I was almost late today because an 86-year-old woman in a wheelchair was dropped off at the bus station. And there was no work on the weekend. But who do you call Shannon? I'm also chair of reentry because I see the big disconnect, and I can't focus on one issue because they are all interconnected. We need people to step up to hear people's stories. I'm telling you, I have these conversations, and I was having a group, and some of these were in law enforcement and other groups, and I was talking about some of these cuts, and they're like, no, Shannon, it's only going to be fraud abuse, and people not working. It's not just those 13 food trucks. And the mayor clerks was cut. That affected 30 of our nonprofits. 48 individuals had a living wage. They weren't staff. They had a living wage to volunteer and give that. 30 of our nonprofits were impacted. People are leaving the nonprofit sector every single day because they're scared they're not going to have a job. So these people that are dying, we have people literally dying on the streets. We have food insecure. Axe Community Center, they are feeding more seniors than ever before, and they have AmeriCorps workers, and they have their funding cut. But it's the stories. We need people to step up. I don't have that skill set. If you are a videographer or things, we need to tell those stories. And I will tell you, that will make a change on some of these people who voted. Because they don't realize that it's the person sitting next to them at church, that sweet little 86-year-old lady that they've seen their whole life, now doesn't have a place to go and eat. We can make a difference, but it's about having those relationships. It's about having people in your circle and willing. I've had hundreds of people tell me because of my social media posts, they did go and get that COVID vaccine or those other vaccines. But man, we're trying to attack too. So you have to be willing to stand up, and it's scary, I know it is, but we have to go and put the truth, but it helps when it's a local person you're telling about, and not just saying, hey, it's gonna be 600, 800 million in Medicaid cuts. We gotta tell the stories of who it's impacted, because I'm telling you, that's where it's gonna change. It's not the numbers, it's not the facts, it's the stories.
And you're right. The stories and meeting people and seeing ourselves in them pulls us out of the abstraction. I don't know what $100 million means. I don't know what it looks like. What is that? I know an 84-year-old woman dropped off at the bus stop. I mean, I have 84-year-old people in my life. I cannot imagine them being forced to fend for themselves. And how hard that would be at that point in your life. And how moving it is to know that you were there on a weekend. Nobody else is going to take the call, but Dr. James took the call. I'm going to ask you to share your cell phone number so all of us can call you when we're in trouble. Because we know you're going to be there. Cynthia, maybe, or Athena, before the end of the today's town hall, we can get your contact information. Because you mentioned you actually proposed an action. I want to see if we can follow up on it. So she asked about a videographer. We may have a videographer. Almost everyone here, we're going to guess, has a social media account or accounts with 12 to 200 plus followers. We've been lucky. We've got about 2.5 million following us on Twitter, 1 million on Instagram, etc. Why don't, Cynthia, Athena, if we can get one of these stories that breaks through the hundreds of millions or this department or this kind of thing that can seem like an abstraction of distant or far away, stories bring us in. And stories make us care. Anyone know who Margaret Atwood is?
Oh, God.
And I just listened to an interview with her. And
Cool.
Dr. James, she made this point. She said it's, politics, it's policy, and it's candidates, and it's campaign events, but moving people is stories. And I mean, some of the stuff happening in Texas today, if we just say, look, we've got the most obscene abortion ban in America, there's no exception for rape or incest or the life of the mother. I mean, maybe that gets you, maybe that doesn't get you. Maybe you're not in any of those categories, and so it's just hard for you to care. Maybe if I tell you that when Abbott was signing that bill into law, a reporter said, well, Mr. Governor, you say there's no exceptions for rape. What are you going to do about rape? And he says, well, we're going to eliminate it. They, not veto, not the Democratic Party, scientists, researchers, tracked what happened in Texas. In the 19 months following that abortion ban, 26,000 women and girls were forced to carry the child of their rapist in this state because there was no provision for them. Now, that's still a big number, but I guarantee you, to Dr. James's point, if we meet one of those young women, if she is courageous enough to tell her story and to bring us into what that is like, to be violently violated in that way, and for you, instead of the rapist, to bear the consequence of his actions, I guarantee you, that's going to move you, whether you're Democrat or Republican, or choice or pro-life. No one can be good without the only stories that bring us in.
So sorry if I wasn't able to get to you, but this is going to be our last question.
Thank you, Beto, for coming, and I'm really encouraged seeing all. How I'm feeling. I've been very worried about what's happening with Social Security, what's happening with Medicare, Medicaid, what's happening with the immigrants, the way they're treating undocumented people is just so, it's just morally wrong. But I want to tell you what I've been doing, and because I feel helpless. So what I've done, I take a subject, one subject, and I send it a letter, an email to John Corey, and to our Mr. Jackson.
Johnson.
But yet he sends me his letter to tell me how all the wonderful things he's doing in Congress. I mean, nothing to me. John Cornyn does always replies, but he never answers my questions. I don't know about you, but I really get tired of our elected officials not being held accountable to us. We voted for them. At least respond with answering my question and not throwing just a whole list of talking points. And I'm sure it's the aides that are doing it, but the bottom line is I want them to listen to what our concerns are. So I pick one subject, and I usually am sending them multiple emails a week. That's all I feel like I can do right now. And coming to this, I live here in the Panhandle, not in Amarillo, but we don't have a local newspaper anymore. We don't have any, I mean, really, truly, we don't even have, I don't know how we're supposed to communicate other than through social media. I would suggest that there is another social media out there, platform that is becoming pretty prominent. It's called Blue Sky. Not feeling like getting information if you go there. Twitter is, like this gentleman over here said, it's just a cesspool. I don't know why anybody would even be on it because it's very difficult. I tried to wade through all the ugliness and it's just too disheartening. But I do appreciate you coming. I think we all need to try to talk civilly to one another because these things that are happening in Washington, they're going to affect all of our lives, whether it's through Medicare, Medicaid, education, educating our children. It's all going to affect us, and we all need to do what little bit we can do. And if we can't go to a town hall, if our elected officials won't have a town hall, right? Continue to write letters, emails, phone calls, whatever you can do. It's better than doing nothing.
Love that. I mean, why don't you just ask Ronnie Jackson these questions yourself when he holds the town hall here? It's wild to me that members of Congress, to your excellent point, who are only put in this place of power by the voters that they purportedly represent, won't show up to answer their questions or be held accountable to them. I mean, this great democracy, and it is the world's greatest democracy still. I mean, it's on the precipice. It's on the brink. It might get pushed over if we don't push back. But this thing is so vanishingly rare in the whole of human history. for tens of thousands of years. Our predecessors were governed and ruled over by kings and dictators and tyrants and emperors and thugs and strong men and strong women in some cases. Very rare. Go back 2,500 years to the Greek peninsula in Athens. Look at the Roman Republic. Look at some other examples, and they are the exception. Well, look at the planet today. What we have is incredibly special. And it's not just registering, it's not just elections, it's not just the ballot box. It is being accountable and connecting with one another in meetings like these. I was in Congress for 6 years, and I mentioned Dalhart earlier. I remember traveling to Dalhart because I was a member of the Veterans Affairs Committee, a committee that I asked to be, that no one wants to be, because you can't raise money on it. There's no ribbon cuttings. The VA is perpetually underfunded, mismanaged. It's really hard to make a difference. But I wanted to be there because I represented 80,000 veterans in El Paso. I thought I'd represent every veteran in this country. They put their life on the line, signed a blank check, was willing to lose it for America. And our end of the bargain is that when they come back, that when they need help, and have a service-connected disability claim, they need to see a mental health care provider for their post-traumatic stress disorder, they suffered in service in Vietnam more than 50 years ago, we better pony up on our end of the deal. And we worked. I wanted to be there, and I wanted to be there. And we don't have and I think this VA, where they don't have a full-time doctor, and in fact, they have a visiting nurse, and she's covering like a 5-state area. It all convenes right there in Dalhart using telemedicine and video medicine. It was really impressive, and it really gave me some faith and hope, something to build on in other parts of underserved Texas. Well, guess what, folks? This administration is proposing to cut 83,000 jobs at the VA this year. Most of those who work those jobs are themselves veterans, the very people who put their lives on the line, who are getting their lives back together after the first round of service in this second round of service. Ronnie Jackson, who I'm sure is a very fine gentleman, needs to be here to listen to those veterans that he serves and represents, and to answer how cutting 83,000 jobs at the VA is going to help those who are service out of Dalhart or Amarillo or Lubbock for that matter, or the VA, how is that going to make your care any better? We lose 20 veterans a day, every single day in this country by their own hand. Many of them waiting, not days, not weeks, but months, sometimes years, to get in to see that provider that could literally save their lives. Unconscionable. But you're going to take out 83,000 people who could help them. Last thing in my answer to you, and maybe brings it back home as to why we're here today. In those 6 years, during which I had the extraordinary privilege of serving my country and my community in the United States Congress, every single month for 6 years without fail, Cynthia wasn't really excited about this. She was my district director. We held an open town hall meeting, no holds barred. Anyone and everyone could come, and I guarantee you, anyone and everyone came. We always held them in a neutral spot. The El Paso Public Library auditorium, Irving High School cafeteria, a college gymnasium. We never checked party affiliation, nothing, nada. You could come up and say, hey, Beto, I'm so damn disappointed in you. And that vote that you took last week on this issue, I think it's hurting El Paso in the country. I would have to justify myself or defend that vote, or maybe say, you know what, you're right, I screwed up. I should have read the backup then. I would get checked on the things I promised as a candidate. Hey, Beto, you ran on fixing the VA. I'm still having a hard time getting in. What are you going to do about it? And then I would go back to my team and I'd say, I do not want to face him again next month. And you better try to stick around and help me get that done. I found legislation as a member of the minority. It came from meetings like these. Now, I mentioned the 20 a day that we're losing. The number for veterans who have other than honorable discharge is twice as high. You make a mistake while in service in a uniform, you got to pay the price. But at that time, the price was you could not be seen by a provider in the VA. And these young men and women had gone through literally hell and could not get help. So we wrote this bill, the Honor Our Commitment Act, to restore medical access to those who had other than harmful discharges. But that bill was worth all the paper it was written on and nothing more if I could get it passed. And I feared my constituents if I came back and said, you know what? Those Republicans, the majority of that guy, Donald Trump in the White House, they just don't care about veterans the way I and the Democrats do. So just keep reelecting me. One day I'll be in the majority, there'll be another president, and then we'll get it done. No, I would have been laughed out of the room. And so I found a Republican colleague, this guy, Mike Kaufman out of Colorado. I said, Mike, I've got this idea. You care about veterans as well. What do you say? He said, I'd like 80% of it. 20% I want to take out and replace with my own stuff. And I know this is a dirty word in America today, but compromise is the only way to get that thing done. We got it passed 435 in the House. We got it passed in the Senate. And, you know, I don't agree with him on nearly anything, but Donald J. Trump signed that bill into law, and it has saved lives of American veterans ever since. That's what the leaders are able to do. So we've been asking one another today, well, what are the actions that we can take? I've talked about going to the school board meeting, showing up, protesting, making sure your voice is heard, standing up to be counted. What about this? What if everyone here joined you lonely letter writer, and wrote to Ronnie Jackson and said, hey, for some reason, this ex-congressman from El Paso, Texas, held a town hall in your district where you were afraid to do the same. And you said, and you might be more afraid, Ronnie Jackson or President Trump in your political career than anything else. We want you to come and show up so that you're reminded that you have to fear us, your constituents, before anything else. Whatever you want to do. This is part of the solution, the way that we work ourselves out of this crisis today. Amarillo, thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
If you would like to stay and say hi or take a picture, we would love to do that. The line will start here. We're going to enter this way, and then we're going to exit that way. So again, if you'd like to stay, say a quick hello, take a picture, please do so. The line starts right here, and we'll exit out that way. Thank you.